Alright, does this thing record? I think it does. Okay, hey YouTubers, decided to do a quick video tonight about our reactive web component framework called WAVE.JS, especially how it gets applied um, to programming of user interface data entry screens. Okay, so the background of this project was, so we took a look at Angular, Ember, Knockout, and I've been using Angular in some other projects, and used Knockout before, and React.js. I think one of the best things out there. Very complex, very hard to maintain when you have. I've seen some people mix and match different in the same project, which is a horrible thing to do. Anyhow, those are good frameworks, but for our purposes, they're too complex, and we want to have a Unistack approach. That is, we have all of the libraries, we control how we version them, and do all of that stuff. So that's the quick background. So WAVE.js is a reactive framework that allows you to do data entry screens, and the demo here is not properly or elaborately styled. It's just basic styling. That's why it looks like 1991. But nevertheless, it conveys the idea, it conveys the message. So let's look at the source code for this page. It becomes obvious what I'm talking about here. So you see some data entry screen with some fields, right, and some validation fields and stuff, kind of music that he likes, whether he's registered or not, his age, his date of birth, and phone number, and all that stuff. So what I have here is a component-oriented approach. So basically, I set up those divs, and I just say that they're all under the form that has this record ID. We call this records, okay, like business records. That's our terminology. Okay, so in Angular, you do Angular application and Angular controller. You're familiar with that, I'm sure. So in our approach, we do data wave, because wave, that's our framework name, web application view enhanced. Okay, so that's the acronym. So we have field names. Those are field names, and I can then repeat that and say what kind of control I want for that view to be rendered as text versus being a checkbox, or versus being a radio group, because there's just a lookup dictionary assigned to this thing, okay, right here. So how do I start my model here? The model is view model. It is basically just a JSON object, and I have a regular constructor. Now, I know you guys like this new immediately invoke function and all of this asynchronous module definition, required JS, and all of that crazy stuff. The way we do it old-fashioned way. So because some developers are still VB, Delphi background, they just like linear code. Now, you can't program with a linear code in JavaScript. That's understandable, but you can still do things like pretty, standard thing like namespace, class, new, var record is the new, then you pass it a field defs. That's how it was done in Delphi. If you remember Delphi, ever used Delphi, Borland Delphi, that is. So this is the field definition, and it has about 15 or 20 properties, like whether field is required, the default value, placeholder, all of that crap that every time everyone has to repeat. This is so bullshit, that you have to repeat all of that stuff in every application you build. Even if you use Angular, most of that stuff you need to repeat, like phone, masks with localization, and whether this is a screen name or email, because some stuff has validators for it, but some other edge cases, which they think they're edge cases, most business applications need them anyhow. So you have all of that stuff here. You can also assign a value here, right here. So the record is initialized. Now I bind it to the record view, so which is basically a binder controller. Okay, and it takes the ID. This is where I establish my ID. So all of these fields become bound to the context of this record via this ID. And the third parameter, which is not stipulated here or specified, is the rendition library, the rendering library that renders a field per this definition. So these are components effectively. So this is a component, and this library, it stuffs this div with whatever garbage it needs to stop to show you those views. You know what I'm saying? Like generate all of this soporific stuff that we used to write by hand in the past. Oh God. Okay, so then stuff like AngularJS came around, and everyone, oh wow, you can, or Backbone or whatever, the reactive frameworks where you can connect the models to the views and back and forth. So we do the same thing. It's a dual way binding. So if I change my value of my field in the record, my controls will reflect it. Somewhere here, I have a bunch of stupid buttons that, well, here is the data for the record, first of all. Okay, so this is just a JSON object, field name value, field name value, field name value. Okay, then I can set the property visible. So this is a view model actually. So I can say visible last name. See, I can toggle that, and then the both fields, I purposely connected two fields to the same backend field. Okay, so I can set nodes. Okay, so I set nodes on the nodes field, and now immediately I saw it here. Then, so let's say I have a dictionary here, and I can add one more key to it, and this is the key that I have added to it. And then if I try to validate my model, I don't know why this comes up. Okay, I don't have any validation errors. Everything is valid. But if I remove this choice, come on. If I remove this choice, then the validation should fail, because this value Lenin is no longer a valid key for this various configuration or various classification field or whatever. Okay, so apply defaults. You can apply default values to field. Apply defaults with the force that will force out any fields that you have altered by hand, and see every field has a modified property that is indicated by this horribly looking squiggly, well, it's not squiggly, but this blue line. Okay, set wrong music type. Okay, so let's say I have a classic rock, and now I set a wrong music type. Build, destroy all of the views, build all of the views. I purposely put a yellow border so we can see them. Reset modified, all the modification gone. Read only last name. So last name is read only now. And when I cannot change anything in it. Okay. Read only music type. Where is my music type? Okay, I cannot change it anymore. It's read only. Applicable last name. Now, that's very cool. Applicable is the same as enabled, but sometimes you need an enabled property which is connected to something else. Applicable is like more of a business kind of whether the field applies. So you can get enabled true, but applicable is false. So the resulting field availability will be false. It's not available. It's not applicable. It's enabled, but it's not applicable because, So applicable register CC just becomes disabled. But its property enabled is still true, but it's not applicable. So I can toggle that. Okay. Required, I can toggle the field requirements and the last name. This button I hit, see, it becomes bold. That's how the style sheet shows it. Okay. So let's look, how I do all of that crap. And yes, I know about decoupling of the click events and JSON. Listen, this is a quick and dirty demo, so I write the code right here on the onClick. Okay. So you have to forgive me for this shit, but that's just a quick test. So let's say we want to do a set date. So right here, every freaking field becomes a property of the record. You see how cool it is? It has this prefix FLD, and then since it's last name, it becomes FLD last name, and then there are some escapement rules that I forgot. So if your field is called first space name, which is stupid. You shouldn't call your fields with spaces because those are system identifiers. Okay, but then it will use underscore, I think, or something like that. But anyhow, field last name value, new date. So I put the date, I set the date and the last name or something. This is how I set the value of the field. If I want to get the value of the field, I call the value as a function. Yes, I do know about the properties in JavaScript in the new versions of JavaScript and everything, but we wanted to create a solution that would work on any browser starting from like Internet Explorer 10. We didn't want to require just the browsers that came out in the past half a year or something, and it just makes sense. So anyhow, apply default values. This is how it works. Set wrong music type. Look, field value wrong, and that's how it works. Build views, destroy views, reset modified. What else can I do here? Yes, and those, all of the fields, and here, I want to add a new lookup dictionary. Check this out. This is pretty cool. Field various lookup dictionary. That's the key. That's the value. You just add it, and then get rid of it. And by the way, you can fire events from the outside if you want to. And all of this is event driven. You can attach the code that binds to the fields or validation of the record or every field or whatnot. Okay, anyhow, that's what we do. And then the rest of this demo here just shows basic things like toasts, dialogues that we can dismiss, and then that's pretty much it. Now, the very interesting thing about it is that this stuff is never written by hand. It's written by hand in this particular kind of unit test, so to speak. Well, not unit test, integration test example, right? But in the real code, let me show you some snippet here. In the real code, all of that gets generated. You create the view model here, and then you decorate your fields with whatever metadata you want and whatever server constraints that you want, and all of that trickles down to your client automatically. So you don't need to come up with this crap. Now, and lastly, what I wanted to show you real quick is that we can style it and we can make it look pretty. I just had to put some rectangles here to conceal the stuff that I have some NDA side for. Anyhow, it's inconsequential. What I'm saying is that whenever these fields get validated, everything gets connected, and then as you can see, it looks pretty okay. And this is the same library, and it's a completely reactive library. You change the value, it changes the model, you change the model, it changes the value, and it allows you to look at your development as if you were still in the VB or WinForms days, where you just deal with components on the form and you don't deal with DOM. See, my personal take on it is this. Looking at document object model, CSS, and jQuery manipulation is the same way as people used to code in Windows, where they had to use device contexts, HWNDs, and all of that crap. And guess what? This was done back in the Windows 3.1 days. Then products like Visual Basic and Delphi appeared, and they created the world of rapid application development, which is you create your prototype rapidly because you put controls on the form. You hit the button, you get the running form. Power Builder, you name it. You know what I'm talking about. So the same thing here. Looking at the DOM with Angular, knowing that you have 3 little thingies that you have to change just to show a card, in my opinion, is wrong, because this is a very low-level programming. We want to have something like Polymer, or whatever it's called now, the web controls, the new thing that is coming out. But this thing hasn't been standardized yet. So this solution that I'm talking about here just illustrates to you what web controls could be with the special syntax here. So instead of using div, we would use something like field, entry field or something, where the field will have a type and it will bind to the model. But we essentially do the same thing. We just use div as a placeholder, and we set the field name and the record context here. That gets generated by the server, and then you can write whatever code in a kind of procedural way, so to speak. You can use callbacks and promises, of course, like any good JS developer would do. But I'm saying that we access those fields just with a dot notation, just like you do with the scope in Angular, where you do $scope dot first name. But here, our view models for every field has about 25 or so properties, like value, valid, whether it has been validated yet or has not been validated yet, and all of that stuff. So this is a component-oriented library. Why don't you guys just go and check it out on GitHub, Omcode, NFX, and this is a part of big, large NFX framework, but you don't have to use it all. You can just take this WAVE.JS out of it and use it, try it in your project, see, let me know what you think about it. Okay? And I hope I'm going to hear back from you pretty soon. Thank you. This has been Dmitry for you from IT Adapter Omcode. Thank you.